This is a review of Survivor Season 47, Episode 10, Loyal to the Soil. We have a full episode recap ahead. With me, as always, Richie Becerra in the Cam Scatabo shirt yet again. ASU continues to ride. Survivor continues on as well. We got a full episode recap. We're going to do stock up, stock down, which Castaway stock is up, which Castaway stock is down. We're going to rename the episode. We're going to do a Survivor press conference, and we're going to decide who goes home next week. But a little bit of business. You got another one right. Is this your third of the season? This is your second?
Third of the season, yeah.
Third of the season, a correct guess. After trying a couple times, you finally got Gabe. Yeah. I'm just going to keep it on brand this season. I mean, I know the comments have been on fire about what I am drinking. I'm gonna stick with it for the rest of the year, and then maybe the bottle will be
okay.
I mean, depending on how good you feel. While I pour this up, Richie, why don't you give us the top 5 shots, possible shots to have somewhere? Because you actually had a bad shot last week. You had one of the worst shots of your life last week.
That was the worst shot ever. I mean, me and some other buddies, we were in Vegas, and we saw a deal, $5 shot at a beer. We're thinking, oh, okay, who's going to turn that down?
I poured that heavy.
I mean, this was the nastiest shot of warm Svedka vodka you'll ever have in your life, and it was so bad we didn't get another one. But yeah, number 5 I would say would be Rumplemints. I actually like a good Rumplemints shot. I know it's probably a very contentious pick. Number 4 is going to be a green tea shot. I'm okay with a green tea shot every now and then. Can't do too many of them. Number 3 will probably be a gummy bear shot, which I think is really good. The only bad part about that is there is a lot of sugar in them. Number 2 is going to be straight up tequila, salt, and lime. Classic. Can't go wrong. Gets straight to the point. And number 1, a Vegas bomb. Best shot there is.
Vegas bomb.
Yeah. Tastes like Powerade. Goes down smooth.
Why do I not know what a Vegas bomb is?
We took that's what I got us when we were in Vegas 2 times ago when we were at O'Shea's.
Oh, okay. All right,
yeah.
Vegas bomb. They're kind of like the lemon drops, or not really?
No, they're purple.
Oh, dang. Interesting. Yeah, I don't mind a lemon drop. I like your Rumplemints pick. But Crown Royale, definitely not top 5. But I'm here doing it. And I'm gonna have to make a change. I mean, the Malibu last season was so good and so easy, and I mean, obviously a lot like technically easier too. But you made a right pick, and we're gonna get to it. Let's start off with the beginning of the episode. This episode was kind of dominated a lot by Teeny, and we kind of see like the post-tribal, really crucial time, and at this point. It's Genevieve apologizing to Teeny because Teeny was left out of the vote. And they showed it in the previously on Survivor, but I don't remember seeing it where Teeny says hey, everything I do from here on out is for you, Saul.
Yeah.
Teeny seems to have this new fire, and Genevieve, we really see her get emotional when she talks about separating the game and the friendships and relationships that she has. And it's very new era Survivor. You didn't really see this happen a lot in old games. Survivor's a lot more cutthroat. I don't know. What did you make of Genevieve? Do you feel like she made good avenues with Teeny at least, or it
honestly it reminded me a lot of last episode because you had last episode Andy talking to Rachel. I mean, meanwhile Andy had blindsided her twice. The same thing here. Genevieve has now blindsided Teeny 2 times, and I get that what Genevieve's trying to do. I don't think it's sincere. I don't know if I buy what Teeny was saying to her either. I don't know if Teeny fully trusts her.
Yeah, it seems like it can immediately go out of it. And right after this too, we do see Andy talking more about his gameplay. He starts to say it's got to be a Tuku next, which is what everyone's kind of thought. It's insane that they're all still in the game. And Eve is they do one of those cool things that they do in Survivor sometimes where he's talking and they show an animal matching it, and it was the spider on the web. Yeah. And it's crazy that we're just again, every episode it's holy crap, I'm thinking about episode 1 Andy and how he's still here and he's in the mix and he's on the right side of the votes. And while Sam is a yellow member that you're oh no, he might be in trouble. Andy's one that you're dude, he's kind of in a great spot.
Yeah.
So cool to see Andy play well. We get
I
to a
also
reward challenge.
I
Oh,
wrote
go
before
ahead.
that I wrote down what something that I liked that what Genevieve said in her confessional. She said, "Tallest blade of grass has been cut, and I grew a lot yesterday." I thought that was just a really cool
Yeah,
line because I mean
that's a
that
bar.
was one of the biggest threats gone, and now she's the next tallest one. So
Yeah.
it's good that she
Yeah,
recognizes
and
it too.
yeah, and like and everyone really did acknowledge that like Genevieve did get this vote. Like Genevieve ran this Saul vote. And like cuz that's kind of I mean, that's something that everyone at least knows who was in charge of the vote. It wasn't like, oh, we don't really know who threw it out. That puts a pretty big target on Genevieve's
Hmm.
back. And when you're watching at home, it's hard to tell. Like, do they know who's a threat right now? And it's clear they thought it was Genevieve. We get to a reward challenge, and this is a very classic reward challenge.
Hmm.
This is a classic episode in that we just get one reward challenge, one immunity challenge, no journey. And they break them up into three. It has nothing to do with votes. It's just strictly a reward. That felt pretty good, right? I
Yeah, it
mean,
did. It felt
like
like old Survivor. It was great.
it kind of threw me off too. I was just like, "Oh man, it's like you're just used to hearing like, oh, but
Hmm.
there's a twist, but then there's this, then there's this," and like it was cool that it was just straight up. If you win, you get this. If you lose, I got nothing for you. And pretty tough, interesting. I feel like I haven't seen this challenge before, where they're tied up and they're rolling, they're pushing the ball, which like on screen just kind of looks funny, but I bet that's very very hard workout. Like if you added that to your Saturday workout, that would probably get the core and everything. I don't know how they didn't dislocate their shoulders in some places. Um, Looked really hard.
Yeah,
Kind of interesting. And then they get to the ball roll, which looked like a lot of fun. Um, but ultimately it was Sam, Kyle, and Teeny that won the award. Is that right?
Rachel.
Sam, Kyle, and Rachel end up winning the reward. They get to
And I
go to the
kind of think
sanctuary.
the moment you see Kyle and Sam on the same team, you kind of assume they're going to win it too. And I mean, it
Yeah.
really was never got too close.
Yeah, it wasn't close at all. Even like you see Gabe make a pretty big effort and close the gap pretty hard.
Hmm.
And the first thing I thought when that challenge ended was like, dude, that sucks to be Gabe because you worked so hard to get your team back in it and you drained so much energy, which you don't
For
have a lot
nothing.
out there, for not even close to something. And like, yeah, it was wild. Like even Sam steps up at the last second, rolls the ball right in with some touch. Wasn't
There
too
should have
much
been a
drama in
puzzle
this
after
one.
that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, definitely. There should have. If there was a puzzle there, then
Yeah.
maybe. But it is funny too. I mean, we should talk about, and maybe it's worth just a big drink. But they kind of did a weird misdirection where we thought maybe this was about family when everyone was
Oh,
freaking out
dude.
about
Yeah.
cookies. Was it cookies and cream ice cream or cookie
Yeah.
dough ice
Cookies and
cream?
cream pie.
That was enough. Yeah, man. I was
Yeah.
like, huh, I love that flavor. That's a top flavor for me.
It's not going to bring me
But
to my knees though.
yeah, no, I would just be like, dang, that sounds fire. Yeah, not a family visit. Which they get to go to the sanctuary, and as Kyle, Sam, and Rachel are at the sanctuary, this is where we start to figure out where the votes are going. And Kyle admits that he's like, "Look, I got to go for Gabe.
Hmm.
Eventually, like we know that we're gonna have to get each other out." Sam's on board with that. Rachel's a little hesitant of Sam because like we see the fallout of him blowing up her spot from the previous episode.
Hmm.
And yeah, she seems at some point like, I don't know if we should do that. She's pointing the finger at Genevieve eventually later on, which you could argue is maybe the smarter move. I want to talk about that
For
later for
sure.
sure. Um, and yeah, we get and back at camp, Gabe is doing the same thing about Kyle, like saying, "Hey,
Clearly,
it's gonna
yeah.
have to be Kyle eventually," which
Hmm.
was kind of interesting that they were both doing it at the same time. I think they probably knew there's a lot of blue tuku left in the game, and there's no way that they're gonna let them get the full majority because
Hmm.
at nine, once you get down to eight and there's still four tuku, that would be major issues. Um, a little bit after that, we see Andy aligning with Sue, which seems to maybe be a good connection. They didn't end up voting the same way in this episode, but they kind of link up, and this is where then we get the beautiful mashup of Sue hating Kyle, and it's like it's so funny that like one the internet's already caught on to it too. Like you sent that the funny South Park meme or
Yeah.
whatever of Sue hating Kyle and whatnot,
Yeah.
but like they must have had this ready of like, oh man, don't worry, this is gonna be funny, this is gonna pay off really well. But I Yeah, it was, I don't know. It's just pretty funny when they end up doing that. And Sue has been such a ridiculous character, putting mud on her face, like contouring her cheeks and whatnot with dirt.
Yeah,
Pretty
my
unreal.
mom texted me. She's like, "Sue needs to clean her face up." I was like, "I think she's doing it on purpose, mom."
100%. And like, dude, she's got no mirror, like
Yeah,
doing absolutely nothing with it.
I honestly think
Um,
it's her trying to hide her wrinkles, so she appears to
yeah,
be
maybe.
45.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that is, gosh, I gotta know if they all were falling for that or not.
Yeah.
Um, oh, another thing that happens right here too is when Gabe's talking about getting Kyle out, Genevieve says the line that we've talked about a lot that's very powerful in in like the jury section of in like the final stretch of the show is she says if he's there in the end, I'm getting a vote for him, talking about Kyle. And like that is
Hmm.
such a powerful way to get people
Oh,
to vote out
100%.
someone. But of course you need Kyle to lose immunity, and
Hmm.
um, that hasn't happened thus far very often. It happened last episode, but no one took advantage of it. So we
Yeah.
get to the immunity challenge, and this is where we start off with a rice negotiation. And honestly, when Jeff said rice negotiation, I was like, this is always like, this is never different. This is never
Hmm.
like, never all that interesting. I mean, he made it interesting stabbing the rice or, making it move fast, but the game, the players, they made it interesting, which is crazy.
Yeah.
Wonder what you make into this. They try saying, hey, offer up 4 people to sit out of this game and you can get Rice. I think in the new era, I just don't know that he's ever going to get that number. And he wouldn't
Yeah.
budge on
It's not
3.
for sure.
And then Caroline said, I think Caroline says, what about a shot in the dark? And then Kyle says, what about all of our shots in the dark? What did you
Hmm.
make right when he said that? Like, one, that was probably too much of you could have said, like, what about 5 shots in the dark?
Yeah.
But
I would have for
he went
sure
for them
tried
all.
somewhere less. And I think in that moment, he's not even thinking that. He's just like, okay, we need this rice. Let's go
Yeah.
and let's, yeah. I didn't realize that they really hadn't had rice like all season because, and when they were at the sanctuary, Rich is like, this is the first time we've had rice on Survivor.
Yeah. Which was kind of funny that must have been like a nod of like, hey, we should leave that soundbite in because
Yeah.
Rice is going to pay off in this episode a little later. And yeah, it was a great offer. And what's great about it is I was like, oh, that's perfect. It's a wash. We're back to regular
Hmm.
Survivor. Now there's no new
Yeah.
era twist in it. And it's like, oh man, with final 9, we're going to have 0 shots in the dark. So it's like, all right, just focus on idols and gameplay, which is pretty cool. And we get this kind of dilemma with Sam being on the bottom and saying, I don't know if I want to give it up. What would you have done if you were Sam, you think? Because immediately
I
I was like, dude, what if you just say, hey, what if I keep mine? Is everyone cool with that? Because we all know I'm on the bottom.
see that's a bad look though, man.
Oh
I think
yeah,
it's a bad
you
look
think
for
that's a big
sure. And
target?
I honestly think he didn't play that well. I think he should have tried to hide his emotions and just bit the bullet and gone with it. Because at that point, like everyone's down for it, you're the only one. You almost have to give in. Because even
Yeah,
if you don't give in, then like they're pissed at you. You're probably gone next.
yeah. Yeah, no, he ends up like kind of complaining, and then Gabe is the one that pushes him to be like, dude, just do it, like it'll be good. And
He made
like,
great points
and
that entire time.
he did make great points, but I mean, Sam ultimately is right that he's like, I'm not going to be the reason we don't get Rice. Then we get to the immunity challenge, and the immunity challenge, it's the balls on the disc. Not all that exciting, to be honest, but a kind of a classic, I guess. I mean, this has happened a bunch. It comes down to Kyle and Sue, which is again, shout out to Sue. I want to give Sue her flowers. Like
Hmm.
Sue has played a really
Got to.
she's in the mix in the game. I mean, we've not said even
Hmm.
like Sam has not even been close to the challenge beast that maybe you've thought,
Which is
but you could,
surprising to me.
which you could argue maybe he's playing it well to like, yo, don't win the
Hmm.
challenges to the end. Like that kind of seems to be
Maybe
his
waiting
strategy.
for Kyle to go so then he can kind of take over.
Like you always want to keep a bigger threat in the game ahead of you,
Yeah.
and Kyle could be that threat. But I mean, you leave Kyle in, he can just keep winning, and we see that here.
Hmm.
And there was a little bit of controversy. They didn't even bring it up in the podcast. I thought maybe they would, but right at the end, when it's Sue and Kyle showing down, and it's cutting back and forth between the two of them, 3 balls on. The disc seems to be on Kyle's forearm while it's lifted up off of Sue's. And I mean, they
See,
didn't
I saw
say
it on
anything
Sue's
about that.
forum as well, so
Oh, like early or
I don't
towards
know.
like the last couple shots though, I'm pretty sure were just
But I don't think there was any rule that they couldn't have it on their forum
yeah, maybe. I mean, but yeah,
because I
that just
saw
wasn't
multiple
clear.
people throughout the thing have it on their forum.
Yeah, yeah. In the last couple of shots, I that just stood out to me, and I was like, oh man, that's wild.
Yeah.
And then Kyle
And the
wins
whole time I
immune.
was thinking, I was like, I would for sure have it resting on my forearm because that's going to put way less pressure on your wrist.
Oh yeah, that's you can stand there a lot longer. And
Hmm.
Kyle ends up winning his fifth immunity. Is that what they said? Um,
Fourth.
fourth individual immunity, which is huge. Like, I mean, through not like that's crazy that there have already been four that he could get.
Hmm.
I mean, there's been five technically, but
Yeah.
because they've done the splitting and whatnot, pretty crazy for Kyle to win yet again. Um, yeah, and we come back to camp for the scrambling, and it seems to be that like Gabe wants to make it Genevieve and gang want it to be Gabe. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, I don't know. Is there anything you saw here? Because ultimately, what happened for me is once they kept showing Gabe being so confident about final three and
That's,
just make it
yeah.
through, it was like, oh man, they're telling me right now, and I was like, oh, maybe the survival did thing where they're like, no, we won't. We're just gonna pull the rug out underneath you here. It felt like he was getting the kiss of death early.
Once he mentioned that final three to, I think it was Caroline,
Hmm.
that was the, to me, it gave me back to almost like Rome vibes where he
Yeah.
got too confident. Like, this is it. Like, there's no way he survives this.
Yeah. Yeah. And like ultimately we like Caroline saying that she's willing to flip. Rachel seems to be the
Hmm.
only one not of Gabe and Sue that is like, hey, we can do Gabe a different time. Like, but Genevieve is the one who just controlled the Saul vote. Like,
I
which
mean,
to
she's
me,
playing. I think she's playing the smartest game.
yeah, to me, like if I see Rachel at the end of the game, Rachel might be my like. I hope Rachel wins because like Rachel's
Hmm.
been through a lot, and I feel like Rachel's been the sharpest and laid low enough, and like the way she maneuvered the idol and whatnot. Like that's who I hope wins because I think she's
Yeah.
got a good path to victory, especially and always smart the whole step of the way. And like right before tribal, it cuts to a bunch of supercuts between Gabe and Genevieve, and even they have an interaction that's like, "Hey, it sounds like it's either me or you tonight," and
Hmm.
like they do a really good job, and it sends us right into a nice rainy tribal council, which we love. Love a good rainy. Cheers to the rainy tribal council.
What did what did you think about Sierra and Saul and their fits?
Listen, listen. I was thinking of that too. Apparently, Jeff told Sierra it looked like you two were gonna be on Dancing with the Stars. I thought that was funny.
Yeah.
Um, they did show like they let them walk in, but I wrote say their names, Jeff. Say their names. I want like because like that was always so good, and they did give them that
Yeah.
moment. I feel like they don't usually do that, but they let them walk in. I we talked about last week, like oh man, I guess Saul probably won't end up being the fan favorite, but he's on the jury, still making still making noise over there because that
He took
fit.
the internet by storm with that vest.
Like, and a part of me thinks like, man, we might get 6 weeks of or however many weeks left of Saul going ham. Because, dude, like that's another thing. It's maybe a good press conference question. Is like, man, you got to have good jury fits because especially if you know you're going to be there.
Hmm.
Like, I wonder how that's planned out. Like, because yeah, the jury you want to come out clean and fresh and looking like a
Yeah.
100%. And I yeah just saw coming out looking so studly and Sierra looking like a pissed off beauty queen. Like
Mm.
yeah, you're right. Good moment for the jury.
Some
Um,
might say Sierra won the episode, but
some
that's
might
just
say
some
it.
people.
Um, yeah, no, it's pretty good. Like they're kind of talking back and forth. Rachel, I noticed even here to give some shine to Rachel. She even says like the reason Sierra and Saul are over there, it's because they are threats. And I when she said that, I
Hmm.
was like, oh man, I wonder if that's a little bit of like leading the jury a little bit.
Jury
Like you want,
management for sure.
yeah, like you wanna throw a little bit of respect and love their way,
Because
just
I
so
don't
that
think they were like ever the biggest threat at any point, but
yeah.
it is always good to tell them that so they, I mean, so you gain favor with them.
Yeah. And I mean throughout this whole tribal too, we see more and more confidence from Gabe. Like which made me more and more nervous. Like, oh no, this is not going to be good.
Hmm.
But Genevieve, you saw the opposite, and which is kind of funny because that's what he says. He's like, well, that's what's funny about Survivors. You could be the highest high and it flipped to the lowest low, but you could also be lowest low and flip to highest high. Gabe, I mean, articulated it great, and I think was a really
Hmm.
good,
Definitely.
you know, good person to lay all that out, but it stinks because that's how he ends up getting bit. We go to the vote, and it's funny. We talked about it earlier. I forgot who it was for. Or maybe it was Saul or Sierra or something. But whenever they're voting for people, and the editors can show the first letter, and it fades. That's
Yeah.
a little. I imagine that's like scorigami, like in football, right? Like you get
Hmm.
a unique
Bro, the
score.
amount of
They're
memes
like,
that I saw about just people getting super hyped because it would say Survivor producers when the two people about to go home both start with the same letter.
yes, dude, 100%. I thought that, like, oh shoot, boy, we get to do it. We get to do it this episode. Like we can just let him write G, and because Genevieve, Gabe are the two options. Um,
Hey man,
Gabe,
shout out to Gabe too for the cursive G because I mean you could give me 100 tries and I wouldn't get a cursive G correct.
yeah, shout out to Gabe, dude. Gabe ends up going home. The only person voting with Gabe was his ally from the beginning, which I respect and love, Sue. Which is
Hmm.
Sue was probably just not brought in. Caroline and
Yeah.
Kyle notably vote for Gabe, probably for the first time as two original Tuku members. Gabe comes up to get his torch snuffed and says, "I'll be back." What do you make of that confidence from Gabe?
Oh,
And
that.
let's take a moment for Gabe. What do you got to say about him? Because Gabe was my choice for fan favorite. It might be one of my closest ones of all my predictions because, of course, I had Tiana winning it all. Boom.
Wow.
Andy going out first episode was pretty close. I was pretty good there. But Gabe fan favorite, I'd won. I'm like, ooh, maybe if he goes long enough. And he felt
I think he's opposite. I think he's fans like not
I
favorite.
he was. No, the
That
charts were
might
all
be your
saying he's
farthest
not.
pick.
Yeah, I guess that's true too. Hey, I liked it, man. We got a good retweet out of him, and he was cool. Like I liked Gabe. Again, it's a little bit like Saul. He didn't maybe play enough game where it's like I gotta have him back, and he didn't make a big enough move to be like I gotta have Gabe back. Um, uh,
Yeah.
but yeah, yeah. Any other thoughts about Gabe? You feel good about him?
I don't think he'll be back. I mean, I think there's 7 or 8 people from this cast alone I would want to see
Still,
before him, let alone, yeah.
yeah. But is TK up higher on that list for you? I feel like that's just
No,
your
but
own.
like I'd rather see Rome. I'd rather see
Yeah.
Andy. I'd rather see Genevieve. I'd rather
Yeah.
see uh, Sue,
Yeah.
honestly.
Well, one last thing. Well, okay,
Yeah.
then one last thing I want to ask about Gabe is, was he the biggest threat? Should he have gone home here, sitting on the
Oh
couch?
no, I think they made the wrong move for sure.
Yeah, like Genevieve.
She's the biggest threat in the game right now. If she makes it to the end
Yeah,
right now, she wins it.
yeah, yeah. Maybe they were really feeling the way he was kind of trying to steer
Yeah.
the vote a bunch. But yeah, I was surprised. I thought Genevieve was the right choice there as well. All right, let's move to the Survivor press conference. Any questions on your end?
Yeah, I want to know if Teeny lit her bag on fire. And I don't know who I'm gonna ask that to, if it's Teeny, if it's a producer, if it's Jeff, but I
Yeah, we
want to know
need
if she
some of
lit it
that.
on fire on purpose for the
Yeah,
attention.
interesting. I wonder. Well, they asked about it on the podcast. They said like, is this common that people like set their stuff on fire in general? Because like that could be a common. I mean, there's just an open fire, and I guess people like are
Hmm.
careless and whatnot. Like, but
Yeah,
yeah, to go, she did it on purpose. I mean,
I
maybe.
don't know.
I mean, it doesn't really feel like a smart thing to do. I could see that you're using it to cover your feet while you're by the fire, and then it falls there too. But what's the play in it being on purpose? Just
Gain
a feel bad
sympathy.
moment? Sympathy.
Yeah, I mean she kind of already feels on the bottom. Her
Yeah.
two best allies have gone home. She said a couple
Interesting.
times that she like has been sad about whatever.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I didn't even think of that. That would be interesting, especially and if it was a play, maybe that's not bad. I don't hate it. But like it would be cool if that was said too. She's like, "Yeah, I burned my bag on purpose." Um I had a question for Jeff and for Kyle. My question for Kyle is: Do you know? Did you know how much Sue hates you? Because I don't think you do. I did not. I like Sue. I mean, all these like there. I think there is a disconnect in like what we know and what the survivors know.
Oh, for
Pretty
sure.
big, pretty big this year,
Hmm.
and like in the way that Gabe was like really like chatty during confessionals, but maybe didn't seem that way while he was out there. Um, like Sue is but the thing is she's not just saying it in confessionals; she's saying it to everyone. But we don't know that. We don't hear Kyle go, "Man, that's Sue. She really doesn't like me." Like you kind of would see that. So I'm curious to
See, I
Kyle.
think he's such a nice guy that I don't think
Yeah,
he notices it.
which
It's just
just
that like he's not living in his own world, but he is so nice that he just thinks the best of everybody that he doesn't think somebody would hate him.
right. Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. And then my next question is for Jeff, and I wonder with the ball challenge is I'm like, this is a challenge that won't be one that goes 3 hours long and we're sitting here
Hmm.
forever. My question is like, do you guys not want those challenges to happen again? Like, do you want to create ones that end early? Or are you okay with like, because I'm sure like as a production staff, they're like, we don't want to sit here for 12 hours. That like really, they probably have
Yeah.
crazy stories of all those like what they had to do between crew of like,
Hmm.
gosh, these cameramen have been sitting here for 8 hours just pointing at these people on posts. Like, what is their relationship to that of like do you now specifically build those types of challenges to end early? Because
I
like
wonder
for
too if they
us,
did it because they did like an immunity challenge as well. So for episode time, like you can't have a super long
yeah.
immunity challenge when you have the reward as well.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I just wondered that because the elapsed time challenges are
Hmm.
always so good usually too, and it's like I wonder if they don't love that. And it is great. It makes for great TV, but like as a production, like that's got to be pretty
For sure.
taxing.
Yeah.
And I wonder if they plan for that. So that's my question for Jeff. All right, let's go stock up, stock down. Who do you got for stock up?
My stock up is Rachel. I
Yeah,
think right now Genevieve is playing the best game, but I think Rachel's playing the smartest game. And I think she's
yeah,
seeing kind of what everybody is doing. She sees through all the people's conversations that they're having. I think she's in a really good spot right now.
yeah. I like that. I actually, and I know this kind of goes opposite of how I'll do this, but I'm gonna go with Kyle in that like Kyle for me that like obviously in the game he's in a very big target on his back, like
Hmm.
very good choice to go home next week. But like Kyle is with winning four individual immunity challenges in a row, he's about to enter a space that is going to make all of Survivor love him forever, and you have to come back.
For sure.
Like you win
Hmm.
five immunity challenges, like you deserve to come back. Like you have that, and like that's a great thing. The fact that he turned
I
on
looked at
Gabe was big,
I
but
looked at the
yeah,
list of all the people that have won five, and I think every single person has come back to play at least one more time.
that's a great point. And like I just think like,
Hmm.
dude, your stock's up in the Survivor world, and like I like that you flipped on Gabe. You have to do that eventually,
Yeah.
and I mean the like, of course, it's like, oh, we gotta get him out, but he survived last week, and they took Saul out, so the way this Survivor can happen, like he maybe could get to final five or get further without still winning. But I just think he's in a good spot in the Survivor
Hmm.
universe. Like you gotta. I
Oh, for
I wanted
sure.
to give him credit because that's a big deal. Even if he does go home next week. Stock down. Who do you got?
Stock down for me goes to Sue. She
Yeah,
was the only one to not vote the right way. Her number one ally went home. The Tuku tribe does not have the numbers anymore. I think everything just started to fall down for her. Only thing good that she has right now is the idol. So we'll see how that plays
yeah,
out. I feel like soon it'll start to come to fruition.
yeah. Yeah, I went with Genevieve. I think everyone knowing the Saul vote to me was pretty glaring as like, oh no, that's not a good sign for you. And yeah, I think Rachel could be someone who really influences because if it's not Kyle, it seems like Genevieve's the next move, even though Sue was the
Hmm.
only one to vote for her. Like Rachel's on board with that. Sam has mentioned Genevieve before too. And Teeny has this weird like, I don't think I want to be with Genevieve either. So I think
Yeah.
Stock's down there. Great player. Everyone seems to love Genevieve, but Stock a little bit down for me. Let's rename the episode. Um, loyal to the soil was the name of the episode. Decent enough. but let's rename it. I kind of think I know where you're going to go with it, and we might have the
Ooh.
same one. Go ahead. What is yours?
You go first. You go first.
Okay, so mine was the quote you brought up, and it was tallest blade in the
Oh,
grass.
okay.
I like that line, tallest blade in the grass. Yeah, it's a good expression. It's good for Survivor. And yeah, it was a good quote by Genevieve. But I had
Yeah.
that written down before you
Great
said it.
quote. Yeah. And I didn't go with a quote this time. I went with something different. I went with Fire to the Rain. We were in Vegas last
Ooh,
week, and there's a lot of people that went to Adele's last concert. Teeny's
wow.
bag catches on fire. I went with Fire to the Rain.
Fire to the Rain. I think the podcast episode was called Fire and Rain, so that's pretty funny.
Ooh, okay.
Fire and Rain was their name of their podcast episode. So
Wow.
yeah, that's you're in
Great
lockstep
minds. Yeah.
with Survivor. All right, so you got it right last week. You picked Gabe to go home. Who
Yep.
do you think goes home next week and does not make it to the final 7?
Am I gonna pick or are you gonna pick?
No, you pick, dude. The winners. We play
Okay.
winners.
I'm going with Genevieve. I think it makes the most sense. I mean, I think she's the biggest threat right now. I think everybody knows it.
Yeah,
The only way I see that not happening is if Kyle doesn't win immunity and
yeah.
they decide to take him out, but we'll see.
Yep, those are the 2 names I had down, and I had Genevieve's name first, but I will take Kyle, and I will happily take Kyle too.
Yeah, not a
That's a
bad pick.
great second pick.
Hmm.
I'm happy to take Kyle. So I'll take Kyle, you'll take Genevieve, and we'll get into the next episode next week. Thanks so much for tuning in. Be sure to like, subscribe, comment, leave a review everywhere you can. Go Devils. Do you have a final
Go
score for us,
Devils.
Richie? This episode probably will come up after the game, so you will really
Yeah,
feel this.
I'm going to say 35-14.
35-14 Sun Devils homecoming.
It's going to be loud in there.
Who's gonna be the impact player? Will it be Jordan Tyson? Will it be
I think we're back to a
Scat
Scatterby
Thibault?
game. Yep, he
Wow,
plays
Scatterby
very well
game.
at home.
All right, thinking. I would be happy to bet the 2+ touchdowns. I might have to do it.
Yep. I wouldn't be surprised if there was a passing touchdown in there by him.
Hey, dude, that place would go absolutely nuts. Gonna be crazy. Tune in. Thanks so much for being here, and we'll see you next.